Jerry.
Going to be on the coaches show. I've been called a coach before.
And welcome. It's our inaugural Baylor Coaches Show of a new school year. We are live at Rudy's on the Circle in Waco. We are glad you're with us. You can tell by the thunderous applause that we've got a great crowd here at Rudy's tonight. Thank you all for being here. Thanks to those of you that are listening. Thanks to those of you that are watching as well. And we are excited about a new season for Baylor football starting this Saturday. We've already got volleyball and soccer underway. Cross-country runs tomorrow morning in Round Rock, and football begins on Saturday. Coach Dave Aranda will be here in just a few minutes. They are finishing up practice on this Wednesday of game week. But until Coach Aranda gets here, join me in welcoming Jerry Hill from the Baylor Bear Foundation. Jerry, welcome to you.
Thanks, John. I'm glad you made it clear right from the start that I'm not Dave Aranda.
I wanted to make that clear.
Yeah.
Those watching and those here will know that. Those listening need to know.
Yeah.
They say, well, Coach doesn't sound like he normally sounds.
John, listen, I think we're going to be – no, never mind.
Come on, let's
I
hear
still
it.
got to work on my Aranda
Let's
a little
hear
bit. That's.
Let's hear
yeah.
it, and I'll play the audio for it.
Berenstein Bears. I think that's a great story. Old hat, new hat. So
it's good. That's very good.
I don't have a shine coming off my head, though, so
Yeah.
I need to work on that, too.
Well, thanks for being here. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Isn't it fun? This is a fun time of year, isn't it? The start of a new season, start of a new school year.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we had the school year start last week, and now we're, into game week. There is a little bit more excitement this week. I think it does bring that little excitement around campus, around the whole community. So I think it's neat that we're finally into game week, and because it seems like camp went a long time.
Yeah.
Like I was ready to be through with camp and get to a game, and I'm sure the team and the players, the coaches are the same way. They're ready to get to that game week and actually play somebody else.
And it comes up Saturday. It's the University at Albany. They like to be referred to as U-Albany. And they're an FCS school coming in, never played Baylor before, first meeting. This is the highest ranked FBS team they have ever played also. And it's interesting, coming from Albany, New York, they are actually coming in tomorrow on Thursday. Teams normally travel on Friday, the day before, but they're coming Thursday. They want to get acclimated to the conditions here. And I told their radio guy today, I said, it's already fall here. It's only going to be 91 and sunny on Saturday. I mean, we've turned the page to fall, but it'll be interesting to see how they handle that.
Yeah, and the rain that we've gotten, if it stops raining and then that humidity hits on Saturday, they will definitely feel it because they have not had this kind of weather in New York.
Right.
I was in Pennsylvania earlier this summer, and I can tell you that it was nothing like what it is right here, even now.
Yeah. What do you think? Best year in Baylor football history last year, 12-2, Big 12 champs, Sugar Bowl champs. What a great year it was last season. Now what do you do for an encore this year?
What do you do for an encore? And I do agree with you, John. I think it was the best season in program history. I mean, people can look back at 80 and then the 2 back-to-back conference champions. But I think winning that Sugar Bowl kind of put the cherry on top and gave them, school record 12 wins. So I think it was the best season ever, Big 12 championship too. So, what do you do for an encore? And there are a lot of key pieces to replace, both sides really. But I think there's enough in place, and particularly in those offensive and defensive lines where Coach Aranda builds this team from. I think all of those guys pretty much are back. So I think when you start there, I think good things can happen.
And isn't it comforting to start with, you'd say really the strength is the 2 lines, the offensive and defensive lines, a lot of veterans returning and a lot of depth in both those positions.
Yeah, it's crazy. The defensive line returned its 2 deep across, it's only 3 positions, but returned that entire 2 deep. And then you bring in Jackson Player from Tulsa, who's been an all-conference player there, a great player from Midway High School. So, great depth there on the defensive line. And then the offensive line, you shift over there, and you've got a couple of 6-year seniors back, and Connor Galvin at left tackle, returning Big 12 Offensive Lineman of the Year. So, great depth there, too. There's some younger players coming up. But, that front 5, that first 5 is really good. So, I think that's comforting, I know, to Blake Shapen and to Tay McWilliams and guys like that, they're going to benefit from that line.
How do you feel from the practices you've seen about Blake Shapen taking over as the number 1 quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he kind of showed, flashes or a little bit of what he had last year with the 2 starts and finishing up the K-State game as well, completing his first 17 passes in the Big 12 championship game. So I think he showed that, he can do it at this level. And I think that what he does is he brings a little bit of different dynamic, John, that deep downfield passing. I think they're going to add that a little more this year. The run game obviously got going last year, but I think Blake, and with his accuracy and his ability to just kind of throw at different angles and stuff, I think he gives the offense a little different, dynamic than they had last year, and I think that'll be fun to watch.
And with the players that are gone from last year's team, understandably, folks outside the program might say, well, who's the running back, or who are the running backs, who are the receivers? Since we lost so much at those 2 positions, what have you seen there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of depth and a lot of talent. It's just guys that we don't know yet. Tamick Williams, we saw a little bit of. He had a 100-yard game last year and got in some other games. So you saw a little bit of what Tamick Williams can do, and now it's kind of his turn. He's a bigger back, but has really good speed too. So I think that's a good option. But they've got a lot of guys there. That Quaylen Jones gives you maybe that power back that Abram Smith provided last year. And then Richard Reese, I know we've talked about him in the past. I mean, he's a freshman. And he's smaller, but he's pretty stocky, So I think he's gonna play. He's a true freshman, I believe Belleville, and is a really good player. So I think he fits in there. Craig Squirrel Williams, when he's fully healthy, I think he comes back. And Josh Fleeks, converted receiver that has played some running back. So again, they've got great depth there. And then the wide receivers, you got Hal Presley and Seth Jones and Monterey Baldwin that we saw in the bowl game last year, or Armani Winfield. A lot of depth there as well. Just guys that haven't done it. Gavin Holmes is a 6-year senior and has the most production, but really, he's had so much injuries that he hadn't really been able to do it on a consistent basis. But he at least gives you an experienced receiver coming back.
Very good. All right, I don't want to run out of time and not be able to do this, but one of the aspects of our show is the First Place Foods Ask the Coach, and we've got a pile of questions here for Coach Aranda when he gets here. But, Jerry, we've got a couple of questions for you from the audience tonight, okay? Are you ready for this?
Can I turn them down if I don't like them?
No, you cannot. I've got them in my hand.
Okay.
It's the First Place Foods. It's a new feature. First Place Foods Ask Jerry, brought to you by First Place Foods. That's a darn good pickle. So the first one is from Michael Bankele, right back there. And Michael says, what football player can you outrun?
Whew. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus because I'm not sure I can outrun any
right,
of them.
Right.
I don't know. I don't even want to test that. You know, I remember when Brad Gable was here, Dave Campbell would talk about how slow-footed he was, and Brad got so mad because he kept having it in every column. And Brad finally was like, "Hey, tell that old man to come out here and I'll run him." So I don't want to run against any Baylor football player.
That's a very good answer. That's a smart answer. All right, here's another Ask Jerry question from Steve Van Wagner. Steve is right here. Who do you expect to be our toughest Big 12 opponent? Good question, Steve.
Yeah, toughest big. And I tell you, Steve, one of the things is that road schedule. When I look at that, and Coach Aranda has talked about it, every one of those are going to be tough. They play 6 games on the road, 5 in conference, and again, I think every one of those will be tough. We go to West Virginia, we go to Iowa State. Oklahoma is rebuilding some, but I think they've got a lot of talent there. I think Oklahoma probably would still be the toughest game in the Big 12. There's going to be some good home games too, but I'm going to pick Oklahoma because I don't want to pick Texas.
Very good. Good question. Great answer. All right, we're off and running on our Baylor Coaches Show live from Rudy's. Let's take a break. We'll be back with more in a moment. Coach Dave Aranda will join us when practice concludes and he gets here. But we're glad to have Jerry Hill with us, aren't we? Have Jerry Hill to start off our show. We'll take a break and be right back live from Rudy's Real Texas Barbecue. Show, first edition for the new school year. Hey, we're glad you're with us. Baylor football, of course, the reigning Big 12 champions. What a stirring victory that was over Oklahoma State at AT&T Stadium to win the Big 12 championship by about 3 inches.
Yeah.
But followed that with a Sugar Bowl win over Ole Miss. So great season for Baylor football. Now they open the new season this Saturday. Isn't it interesting? Coach Aranda isn't here yet, so we can talk about him. But
right.
Isn't it interesting how he gets asked the question a lot, how are things different now that you're coming off a Big 12 championship?
Right.
And he really says, he kind of laughs and says, there's nothing different.
Nothing different. And I think that's his, personality, that's his philosophy. We're going to do it the same way. I mean, it worked last year, so you probably shouldn't change anything. But, I think there is a lot of, not pressure, but a lot of hype about this team, and he probably tries to downplay that. When I was talking to Nick Florence this week, he was talking about how do you change the mindset, because, Baylor has been the hunter forever. And Coach Aranda will try to flip it and make it where the opponent is the hunted and we're the underdog.
Sure.
That's just the way his mind works. So, I don't know. I don't know in some of those games how you can do that, but that's going to be his mindset that, Baylor is still, the hunter. That they basically, not that you haven't done anything, but you haven't done it this year.
Yeah, it's a whole new team, whole new season. Jerry Hill is with us, Baylor insider. We await Coach Aranda to get here after practice. We talked about the offense and some of those positions. How about the defense? Some really significant losses from that side of the ball. But, man, we've got some guys that are ready to step up and step in.
Yeah, John, when you think about all the defensive playmakers in particular, like we talked about, the line is there. Even some of the linebackers are back, but the secondary has some key pieces missing. Terrell Bernard, obviously, Jalen Petrie, J.T. Woods, all those guys were playmakers, so you're kind of looking for those playmakers. Who are the next playmakers? But you're right. Defense has so many of the pieces back that I think they've got a chance. They're set up to be as good, hopefully better than last year. Do have some guys in new places. Al Walcott, who we remember from the Sugar Bowl, returning the interception. He's moved from cornerback to the star position that Jalen Petrie was in. And I think Al is going to be tremendous in that position. And then Lorando Johnson, Snacks, he's moved from that star. He was the backup behind Jalen, and now he's at cornerback. So you've got him and Mark Milton at the corners, and then Devin Lemire and Christian Morgan at the safeties. So I think the pieces are in place. We're going to miss all of those playmakers. We're going to miss the leadership. But I think the guys are in place. And like I said before, when it starts up front and then you can go from the back, I think that's the way Coach Aranda wants to build it. I think that's the way most coaches want to build it. That's the way Coach Aranda has built it. And I think the fact that, those front three are back, the two inside linebackers are back, so I think that will help this team win even when you're trying to still find some of those playmakers.
Yeah. Dylan Doyle is back, middle linebacker. Man, isn't he, he is kind of as good and as veteran as the line is. Dylan Doyle's kind of the leader back there, isn't he?
Absolutely, and I think he's the guy that everybody listens to, and man, he was so impressive up at Big 12 Media Day. We got the chance to listen to him in one of the breakout sessions, and he knows what he's saying. He thinks about it, kind of like Aranda. He has to, give it some thought first, but he's really good in that role. I could see him as a coach down the road, or, in some kind of capacity, and he's going to be in kind of a leadership position, because that's what he is on this defense. Is he's definitely the defensive leader, and those guys, like I said, those guys listen to him. Matt Jones is playing next to him at the will linebacker spot, and then Garmin Randolph and Bryson Jackson out at that jack position. So I think this could be a really good defense. They showed it, during spring or during fall camp that they could be really, really good.
Good. Albany is this week. Next week is BYU. I won't bring that up to Coach Aranda. They're completely focused on the season opener. But how about that trip to Provo next week? I know a lot of Baylor people are excited about, kind of a preview of coming attractions.
Yeah, it's cool that, they're coming into the conference, and we get, we had this 2-game series with them before they come into the conference, and actually they'll be in the conference next year. So we kind of go from this 2-game non-conference series right into conference play with them, and I do think it's great. I have not been in Provo before. I've been to Logan, Utah when Baylor played Utah State there in '94. So looking forward to this. It's BYU's one of those traditional, really strong teams when Lavelle Edwards was there and, has won a national championship. So I think it'll be a great trip. And obviously we have the connections with, Baylor staff with their team, with Jeff Grimes and Eric Mateos, both coming from there, and even some of the, quality control, those type of guys. So I think that'll be interesting. I think it's good that we played them down here last year and, maybe take some of that out of it. But I still think it'll be a great trip and a good test for this team. I mean, they're going to be, they're top 25, and they have a lot of pieces back. So I think that will be a great test on the road early in the year.
I know you remember prior to last year, the last time we played BYU was a home and home, 1983 and 1984.
Yeah.
83 was in Waco, and that was one of the best games I think ever played at Floyd Casey Stadium. Big Baylor win, beat Steve Young, then went out there in 84 and lost to BYU in their national championship season.
Yeah, I think that 83 game might have been one of – now, I had watched I was actually at North Texas the year before that as a student and came down here when North Texas opened the season against Baylor. But I think that one in 83 might have been my first Baylor game to actually be at. And what a great game. I mean, it was unbelievable. So, they beat them that year. And I think they're the only team that beat them in that 2-year stretch because they went undefeated the next year and obviously beat Baylor up there. So, it's fun. And like I said, I think this will be a really good series. I think, because both teams are really in good position right now, and I think they'll continue that into conference play.
I remember Coach Taff and Lavelle Edwards were contemporaries, very good friends, probably still are very good friends. It's Lavelle Edwards Stadium that we'll play in Provo. And Coach Taff's story was great. When Baylor beat BYU in Waco, so this was 1983, 46-40, I think, was the score.
Something like that,
And Steve Young was the quarterback. He had over 500 yards of total offense in that game. He had an unbelievable game, but Baylor had an even better game to win it. Coach Taff tells the story. I can't do it as well as him, but he tells the story of going to midfield to shake hands with his good friend Lavelle Edwards after the game. And he says, this old linebacker, out of the corner of my eye, I saw somebody coming at me like a hard charging train. So I braced myself for impact, and I look over, and it's Steve Young. Steve Young ran up to him and said, Coach, wasn't that a great game? What a game. And they just lost to Baylor, 46-40. But what a great memory there. And even Steve Young, even losing that game, thought it was
recognized it as a great game. Absolutely. And, man, it was. I mean, that's probably still one of the classics at that stadium, I would say. One of the best games ever at that stadium.
Yeah. Okay, that was Floyd Casey Stadium.
Yes, it was. Well, it was actually Baylor Stadium at that point. But
yeah, that's right. It was Baylor Stadium.
Floyd Casey, late 80s.
85. And do you know who knows the home field for the UAlbany Danes? What's the name of their home stadium?
I actually know this answer.
You do know. Anybody know? For some old Trapper beef jerky, does anybody know? All right, what is it, Jerry?
Casey Stadium.
It is Tom and Mary Casey Stadium.
Casey Stadium.
No relation to Floyd Casey.
No relation. That we know of.
As far as we know. That's right. All right, we're rolling from Rudy's on our Baylor Coaches Show. Jerry Hill is here. Coach Dave Aranda will be joining us in just a little bit. We are glad you're with us. We'll take a break and be right back. It's the Baylor Coaches Show live from Rudy's. Rudy's Real Texas Barbecue. And back with us live from Rudy's on the Baylor Coaches Show tonight, our inaugural show of the season. I want to let you know our plan for the year here in the fall will be live at Rudy's on weeks when Baylor has home games. So this week we'll be back on September 14th. So weeks of home games will be here live at Rudy's. Other weeks it's a radio-only show, but we'll have a show each week, Wednesdays, 7 to 8 p.m. But here at Rudy's, live the week of home games. Jerry Hill is here. Dave Aranda will be here when practice is complete. But isn't it great to have the Gold Guys here as we start a new school year? Way to go, Gold Guys.
Thanks for being here,
How was your
guys.
summer, Gold Guys? Hot. Imagine you're wearing that gold lame. It'd be really hot. So welcome. Glad you are here, and glad everyone is here. Very nice crowd here at Rudy's. Includes the Baylor Best program. Bunch of seniors from that area, and welcome to the Baylor Best program. You guys and gals are great, and we're glad you're sharing the evening with us. All right, Jerry, final thought. I'd love to continue talking.
I was already calling for the bullpen. I was ready to bring in. I was ready to bring in the closer.
We're going to bring in the right-hander. Right-hander? Yeah, we'll find out. We're going to bring in Coach Dave Aranda. But thank you very much for sitting in, getting things going with us. We really appreciate it. Let's take another break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by the head coach of the Baylor Bears, Coach Dave Aranda, when we come back live from Rudy's right after this. And back with us on the Baylor Coaches Show, let's give you our Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics health tip for the week. Don't let pain slow you down. We diagnose and treat sports-related injuries and provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike. Visit a Scott and White, Baylor Scott and White sports medicine and orthopedic specialist and move like you used to. Thanks to Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team doctors for Baylor Athletics. Folks, join me in welcoming to our stage here at Rudy's Baylor head coach Dave Aranda. Coach, welcome.
Hey, good to be here.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much. You know, given the choice of you here talking to us or you at practice getting things done, we'd want you to be at practice. So hope you didn't rush over it all.
No, it worked out really good. I'm excited to be here. I miss these times, and so it's crazy that it's already back.
Very good. Game week, does it seem like it's been a long time to get to this point? And how excited are you to get things started?
Excited, talked to the team today about not missing this opportunity to step into who they are. I think so much of it is that. I think, we started in January of like, the wrong first question is like, what do we do next? The right first question is like, who do we become? And I think the whole thing is a becoming. And you look at like Winter and trying to find leaders. The young people getting used to being on time for stuff and class checks and all that. And then in spring, them having the opportunity to kind of show out some and find roles on offense and defense, special teams. And then summer, kind of back to the grind. And Vic's, Valoria, our strength coaches, got them and putting on weight or taking off weight. And then fall camp, I thought, was great. I thought, there was energy every day. When we started fall camp, it was 105 about every day. And so we were inside, I think, the first 3 days, the majority, maybe 60% of the time, and outside 40%. But after those 3 days, we were outside really the whole time. And so there was no, complaining or, we were able to keep guys. They hydrated themselves prior to it, so they were smart about it. And I thought, it's really good showing. And so leading up to this, and so that, the two big concerns going into this game is going to be how we handle, with our young people, how we handle failure, right? What the most important play is the play after the mistake you make, because it's not an if, it's a win. And then, for our veterans, like, some of them with some pretty cool accolades, behind their name is like, don't make every play. You don't have to make every play. Mm-hmm. Do your job, let the plays come to you. And so we'll see. I think a lot of that is a day-by-day thing where it's like, hey, man, just you as you are, that's enough. And so we've been talking that way.
One of the questions you got at the press conference on Monday, I think from Bryce Cherry of the Waco Tribune-Herald, he said, besides a win, what else do you want to get out of this game?
Yeah, so it goes back to that becoming. I think identity is really strong. And, after every Saturday game on a Sunday, you got a brand new team. And so, for us to, I feel like for me personally, there's been like so many words. It'd be great to not have as many words and just have a little more, action on the field. And so I think, having that action on the field will allow, them to kind of sign their name, for us to sign our name. And I think, we really are looking forward to that. And you look at last year and how, we started off kind of rough and got better as the season went on. And the identity, I think, was pretty strong. And we'd like to have a really strong identity here and hopefully start a little bit faster. So I think that's a big one. Competitive maturity would be the second one. And that's when things are their hardest and most competitive, that we are our best authentic self. And, we showed an example today of, we had a play in practice where we had a defender that was going to thud up a ball carrier, and he got kind of knocked back more than what he maybe thought he should have. And the very next play, he was mad about that. And the very next play took somewhat of a questionable shot on another offender. And so like that in a game would be a foul. And so like we made a huge deal about that, because those are, the game is made up of a bunch of little episodes of that where, we can either be better or worse. And, you're affecting your team when this happens. And, I think everyone feels that stuff. We just have to be able to kind of have a pause and control it better. And so I think that second part of competitive maturity is really strong. And then energy is number 3. And so starting the game, I know there's going to be some butterflies and all of it. And then at the end of the game, right, finishing stronger than what we started is way key. And so we talk those 3 things every day.
Wow. Every year is new. It's a new team. It's a new chapter. How about the leaders on this team? You had such great leaders last year. How do you feel about the leadership here?
I think it's emerging. I think we've got guys that are, first of all, just great people. But I think, getting it to the point to where I think so much of it is just feeling comfortable in themselves. I think one of the mistakes I've made in the past is I've talked about leadership, because it was kind of the same with me too. When I took this role and everyone's talking about leadership, and I'm kind of like looking over the corner, like, who are they talking about? And then when you don't know enough, you try to do too much, or you look at what the guy did before, or you look at like what this book in Barnes & Noble says about leadership and all of it. And so I think it's not so much an outside thing as an inside thing of knowing, really who you are and kind of what's important to you and how you want this thing to look, and that, hey, you do have your signature on this thing, man, right? And so all of that kind of takes time because people have to feel safe in order for all that to kind of settle, because a lot of us are used to just kind of saying what we need to say in the spots that we think we need to say stuff, so I think that's happening. I feel, the real test of that's going to be the games when, a coach's mask could come off, right? Trying to be this certain guy, and now all of a sudden something didn't go right, and all this other thing, and that thing right there could kill an emerging leader, who's trying to get, his confidence, or to act on confidence with what he sees and what so much of leadership I feel is like, hey, I just saw something. Should I say something or should I act like I didn't see it? I do that sometimes with my teenage kids. So I just saw something, right? I need to probably say something. And so I think like you want guys to feel confident enough to do that.
Wow. Did you feel like you got what you wanted out of fall camp? I mean, are you where you'd like to be right now 3 days before you kick it off?
Yeah, I think the O-line and D-lines are strong units for us. I think D-line wise, 3 deep can play, and then O-line wise, really strong 2 deep can play, and there's going to be 3s that are going to play as well, but hopefully at the end of games. But I think those units really kind of drive the team. I think the development of our receivers is really impressive. And I give a lot of credit to Dallas Baker. I think he's done a great job of connecting and making, getting kids to where they can believe in them. And they're really playing hard for them, and I think right now I'm having one-on-one, so I'm finishing up the team. And so we've gone through about 80 guys. And so I think like all of the receivers, all of them, all speak the praises of Dallas and how he listens and how because so many guys where there's a mistake that's made, they just want to be understood, and much like I think as a parent you would understand if your son or your daughter made this mistake. Hey, we've been working on this thing at home all day, and now go out with your coach and get this done, and you're seeing it, and here's the time where it's going to happen, and it doesn't happen. Yeah. Right? But then kind of all the stuff as a parent that went into it, and so many times the coach is coming from the other side just kind of killing it, and crushing whatever hopes and dreams are there. And so I think for a coach to have to know your people and to know kind of what they're working on, where they're at in their journey, because everyone's going to be in a different spot, I think that's way big. He does a great job of that. So I think receivers are trending up. I think linebackers are really impressive. I think Matt Jones, having him back, has been way cool. Garmin Randolph is kind of a veteran now, which is really pretty neat. He's going to be a guy that's going to, I think, just emerge and emerge and emerge. Our secondary is a lot of youth, but very, very talented. We've got guys, Devin Bobby, Devin Lemire. There's a few Devins, Devin Neals. All these guys can really close ground and make plays when the ball's in the air, and they're really good blitzers too. So, yeah, I mean, all of that to say, it's one thing when there's not pressure, right? Pressure creates abnormal behavior. So now going into a game when there's pressure, you kind of have to go down before you go up with all of it. And so, yeah, I think it's all part of the process. I'm excited to go through it with them.
Yeah. All right, we've got a lot of questions from the audience. Let's take a break, all right? And then you field some of these questions. They're really good ones. We'll have that when we come back. Coach Dave Aranda is with us live from Rudy's on the Baylor Coaches Show. He'll take your questions when we return. Stay with us. We're at Rudy's Real Texas Barbecue. And back with us live from Rudy's on the Baylor Coaches Show. Coach Dave Aranda, our guest, season opener for the Bears, 6 p.m. Central Time this Saturday from McLean Stadium. Coach, a new partner with Baylor with the Big 12 Conference is Old Trapper. Got some samples there. Take some of those back to the office with you. You like beef jerky?
No.
No. We like Old Trapper, though. We like Old Trapper. We love Old Trapper, and their segment is Where's the Beef? Where's your beef? This year for you guys, part of that is your schedule. Man, it's a tough schedule for your team this year.
Yeah, we've talked about trying to frame that as running into the storm. I think the very first day, report day, we showed a video. It was somewhere in Texas where there was a rancher, and he was talking about all types of animals when storms come. Cows, for example, will run away from the storm to try to get away from it when a storm comes in, lightning and thunder and all that. And as they run away from it, they're really kind of staying in line with the storm, right? They're in harm's way longer. And so they're saying that buffalo is really the only animal that runs into the storm. And you use that to just talk about, hey, there's something hard that I've been avoiding. There's a question that I need to ask that I haven't. There's a difficult conversation I need to have that I've been, trying to work around, or, there's something difficult that I have to do that I don't want to do. And so it's just to run into it and kind of embrace it, And so seeing that when we do get in practice and there are those tough times and all that as it naturally comes, you can hear guys say all that in the back, and so I think they've kind of taken to it.
I like that. That's great. All right, our First Place Foods Ask the Coach. We've got a handful of questions from you, the audience here at Rudy's. It's brought to you by First Place Foods. That's a darn good pickle. Tommy says, which player has improved the most from last season?
That's a good question. Let's see. So Kyron Drones comes to mind immediately. I think his improvement, he's one of our quarterbacks, and his confidence and just the way he moves, there's an energy about him that's really good to see. Seth Jones comes to mind. I think Seth, just maturity and kind of just character growth, and just so cool to see, right? His growth is like the coolest thing for me, just seeing that, and so wanting him to have success on the field because of everything off the field that he's been able to do. I feel like he way deserves it. And then trying to think, defensively, I would say Tyrone Brown is a linebacker for us that same thing, has kind of made the move where he is really matured. He's doing better in school. Let me try to think. Mike Harris is a defensive back, and Mike's had some hard learning on and off the field, and Mike's really doing well right now. So there's been a lot, of some valleys and stuff. With some of these guys, there's a bunch of dudes that are heading up mountains, so it's pretty cool.
Wow, that's great. All right, Noni Orozco, where's Noni? In the room? Oh, yeah, right there, okay. Says, since Sugar Bowl, where have you seen the most growth in this team on the field and off the field?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think I feel there is a vulnerability with the guys that they're more open and willing to go there and maybe talk about their feelings, kind of talk about like what's real, and I appreciate that. And so I think whereas before, there'd be times where I would be up there and the looks that I would see when I'd be talking would be pretty strong, and so now it's more of a head nod, and it's more of I'm hearing his son in the one-on-one, so that, hey, coach, I have this question, I had this, and so I think the trust has been built throughout and continuing to build, where guys can really kind of, say what they need to say, and I appreciate that. I think that will only make us stronger.
Cool. Very good. All right, Ben Hagens is right there. Ben says, two-part question, of course, coming from Ben. Two-part question. Read in the Trib yesterday, talk about expand on your meaning of identity. I think you talked about that. And also, how do you focus on Saturday and not look past this game to the BYU game?
Yeah, appreciate the question. So identity would be, I think I look at it two ways in that. I think one is, right, the identity that I would like for us to have is to do the simple things that ain't easy. And so 11 guys are on the field, right? At any time, at any given time, we're running full speed. We're communicating, right? Offense is getting the play in soon, so there's, we're not late coming off the sideline. If there's a defensive substitution, we're hand signaling, we're on and off, we're clean. I look at the first game last year we had time of possession, we had rushing yards, passing yards, we had all of it. What we did not have was penalties. The competitive maturity thing was just very, very poor, and that game was really down to the last possession that they had. We had a chance to close out that last game, and then I think it was we jumped off sides, which cut down like a 3rd and short to a 3rd and long and didn't get it and had to punt. And so, to do the simple things that aren't easy, I think would be something I would like to see identity-wise. And the rest of it is, we talk about some of the veterans and some of the guys that we have. There's just we go from like an amateur to an actor to an artist. And so that amateur is like on, just doesn't click for him right now on all these lists, right? And maybe blaming and all the other thing. And we got to continue to wrap our arm around him and kind of lead him to where he needs to go. The actor is somebody that, maybe when the sun is shining and everything is kind of going with it, but when the storms hit, right, the mask comes off and who is this guy, right? Who is this new guy that I didn't know? And so I think that's just a process, though, because, the belief is never like that. It's always kind of steps and all that. Then the top thing would be the artist, and that's someone that can express themselves with the sport, right? How they treat people, how they handle negative things, how they handle positive things in terms of, their outpouring and expression of just, empathy. And so I think, that part of identity is going to come from those artists on our team. And you like to have them feel free to be artistic. And so, you look at Petrie, you look at, we had a few of them last year. So
good. No concerns at all about looking past UAlbany to BYU.
With that piece, we talk about respect all, fear none, and so it's just all about us. And so that has been a talk from the very beginning. And, it's one thing to say it, though. It's another thing to do it. And so, it has to be our standards over what TV channel the game is on. It's got to be our standards versus what their record is, our standards versus what their ranking is, our standards versus what their logo is, and it's just it's our standards versus basically anything that's on their phone, and so that's a full-time job.
All right, very good. Kathy Hagans has a question. You made this reference to jazz music the other day also. Do you like jazz music?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. What is it, and how do you incorporated it so seamlessly into your point of jazz music is simple?
Oh yeah, well I like the artistic part of it. I like the improv that goes there, and I think it's acquired taste probably, but I think once you kind of got it, it's way cool. Our recruiting weekends we listen to. So on Sundays they come to the house and we have like a brunch outside, and this is in the summertime, so there's fans and stuff, but it's still hot, and we've got New Orleans jazz playing outside in our backyard and all that. It reminds me of some of the spots that we would go for brunch down in New Orleans, and it's just way cool. I think a lot of the folks that come when they visit Baylor and looking at football, they speak of just that experience. It's pretty neat, but we have jazz on quite a bit.
Very cool. That's great. All right, Scott Bancali right back there has a question. How do you prepare players for rainy games? You've had some rainy practices this week.
Yeah, so you got to have wet ball drills. You have to be able to practice out in the rain, right, for footing. And, and so it's a different, there's different cleats that you can have, so you got to go through all that. I think, lineman-wise, I think it probably favors the offense more than there's a little bit more reaction with defense and a little bit more, space to close for defensive players, where I thought it was this, but it's really that, and it's too late because you're on skates, and so, you have to try to drill all that as best you can.
Good. All right, Mason right here. Mason has a question for you, Coach, and you talked about this earlier. He says, will Al Walcott replace Jalen Petrie as a defensive leader?
Jalen, I think, is one of those guys that's probably irreplaceable just in terms of the whole thing, in terms of just his energy and just, I think Jalen is almost like a symbol of never giving up, never giving in, right? Always treating people right, being a warrior for Christ, all of it. And so I think, I think Jalen will always be that. Now, Al, Al was one of the recruits when we first got here in December, or in January rather, so he's been with us this 3 years. His growth has been way strong. He's one of them also. He's been in some valleys and he's climbing up a mountain now. But he does have, similar to Jalen, the knack for making plays. And so if he's for 30 plays, he's got 2 PBUs, he has a sack, he has maybe a forced fumble. I mean, his numbers are like that. So when he's in the game, he's around making plays. And so I think that if we can get some of that, right, and then get the continued growth just kind of inside and out with him, he'll be on his way.
Cool. Good question, Mason. Thank you very much. All right, 2 quick hitters here to close things out. All right,
okay.
The Gold guys say, have you put any thought into what you're wearing for the Gold Out game against Oklahoma State?
No.
Would you take a contribution from the Gold guys?
No.
No. Look, they brought you a jacket. Okay, hold on to that. We're not there yet, okay? The Gold Out game for football is the Oklahoma State game, October 1st. Final question from Roy Evans right here. Roy says, if the Velveteen Rabbit ran a defense, what would it look like?
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think, what's cool about that story is it's kind of what we talked about in the beginning. It's like, the right first question is, who do you become? And I think all of that. There's a slide we showed today of there's an arrow going straight up like this, and I think on the side it goes like right here. Everything is so awesome, and it was like an arrow going up like this. And then the next slide was on the top. It said, but this is all a part of it, and it showed a graph of an arrow up now like this, arrow like this, arrow like this, arrow like this, like that, which is kind of which is kind of imperfect reality, which is life, And then the next slide was an arrow going way down like this, and the thing was like, this sucks, or this is horrible. And then the next slide after that was all of this again, right? The same as all a part of it. And so, all the praise, the criticism, all of the wins, the losses, right? All of the kind of the trust and the betrayals and just all the stuff that's going to go on this season is all part of it. So you got to say yes to all of it. And then in the process, right, become the person that you're meant to be. And I think, that's what's so cool about that story. And you kind of have to keep bringing that up front because, people will get caught by the wins and the losses, and we'll get caught with all the drama. But the real stuff is better than all that,
Very good.
Yeah.
Coach, thanks. Let's take a break. We'll be back with more in a moment. Coach Dave Aranda, Baylor head football coach, live from Rudy's. All right, back our final segment with head coach Dave Aranda. Coach, we really appreciate your time. You got so much going on, getting ready for a game this Saturday, but we really appreciate you being here. Final thought from you is we get to open at home this year, which is great. Last year we opened on the road, but how much can the fans impact your team, and how much of a factor is the home crowd and the home field advantage for you guys?
No, it's a huge one. I mean, I appreciate the question. We talk all the time just about creating your own energy and how it's better to create it than to catch it, and we talked about kind of the schedule and that's going to be a way important thing, when we're away from home. But when, it is cool to catch it when your fans are really giving just great energy, and there's whether it's a third and long, and defensively we've got to get a stop, right? Maybe turn this momentum around, get the ball back for our offense, and when. I can't talk to the guy that's standing right next to, shoulder to shoulder to me because he can't hear me, right? That's just such a huge advantage. And then, there's just times when I know that last year particularly we'd be down in a certain thing, and the stadium would feel the momentum kind of turn the other way, and then kind of stand up and then create a whole new one. And we would catch on and take off. And so that part is just so cool, man. That's just the participation of both on and off the field. And, to get back into that's way cool. Excited for it.
Yep, that's great. Well, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Look forward to Saturday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Coach Dave Aranda. Final break. Back to wrap things up right after this. That's our time tonight from Rudy's. Thanks to Coach Dave Aranda and to Jerry Hill. Baylor and Albany Saturday. Good night from Rudy's.
This has been an exclusive presentation from Learfield.